Welcome to Healthy Point of View Podcast, where we explore the latest trends and topics in health and wellness. Whether you're looking for tips on nutrition, fitness, mental health, or anything in between, we've got you covered. Join us as we chat with experts, share stories, and learn how to live a healthier and happier life.
Welcome to a Healthy Point of View Podcast. This is your host, Sam Tejada. Today we are interviewing our Chief Medical Officer. He is a wellness expert, triple board certified cardiologist, Dr. Christopher Davis. Dr. Davis, how are you?
Doing well. Always good to be here. Ready to talk, Sam. So good to be here.
Oh, awesome, man. We're going to go deep today on some great things about optimizing one's health with amino acids. So with Liquivida, our product, our IV products, we just recently launched our new amino acid blend. So we're getting a lot of people, a lot of doctors and clients that are asking about, well, what are the benefits of amino acids? Like we always hear about, people taking amino acids when they're working out, athletes taking it, people taking it for other purposes. So today I want to just kind of like dive deep and talk a little bit about the science. Like what are the benefits that people get off of it? What can we treat with it? Just like understand this whole amino acid thing.
So let's just start with the basics. I think we start with the basics of kind of what an amino acid is. And I think to make it very simple, amino acids are the units that make up proteins, right? Or the units that make up peptides that then make up proteins. And I think that's the way most of us think about amino acids, as being kind of the backbone of protein. And we get most of these amino acids in our diet. When we're eating proteins, those proteins are digested down into these amino acids. But one of the things that is important, it's not just amino acids are not just what are used to make proteins. They're also by themselves that the non-protein functions are things like they act as neurotransmitters. They help in hormone formation. For example, amino acids like tyrosine. Tyrosine is an amino acid that's used to make thyroid hormone.
Okay.
It's used to make a neurotransmitter like dopamine. Other ones like tryptophan is used as a backbone of serotonin, which helps us feel good and helps us sleep when it's converted to melatonin. So there are lots of functions of these amino acids that are not just kind of protein and muscle related, although that is kind of what most people think about when they think about amino acids. There are lots of other functions. They're really involved in detoxification of all the environmental things that we're exposed to and toxins that we're exposed to. So there's a very extensive role other than outside of the protein formation role from amino acids.
Okay. So let me ask you this, Dr. Davis. Are amino acids an important part of the metabolic pathways?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think that when we think about, let's just think about, I'll go back to the whole detox pathway. I think we do a lot with Liquivida with glutathione. Well, guess what? Glutathione is a tripeptide, right? It's made of 3 amino acids: cysteine, glutamic acid, and glycine, right? So that actually, when we talk about pathways, we know that glutathione is a very important molecule when it comes to cleaning out our system, detox pathways as an antioxidant. We talk about it as Mother Nature's master antioxidant.
Right.
And it binds other things like heavy metals, for example. Glutathione is a wonderful binder of mercury and people who have mercury toxicity. So that's just one example of how amino acids are important in metabolic pathways. More importantly, let's talk about how our body turns food into energy, right? We eat whatever carbohydrates and fats, and those are broken down in our body. And in order for those fatty acids to go into our mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of our cells, the powerhouses that actually make this molecule called ATP, if we don't have carnitine, right? Carnitine is another amino acid, then those fatty acids can't get inside of the mitochondria to get converted to ATP. So guess what? We don't have any energy. We're super tired because we are carnitine deficient. There's a pathway into the mitochondria that is carnitine dependent. And so if we're carnitine lacking, then guess what? That food doesn't get converted into energy like it should normally be done.
Wow. And that's actually part of like metabolism.
Yeah.
Like there's an injection that people talk about, the lipotropic shot, right? Has the methionine, inositol, choline, and when they add the carnitine to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? They call it the super metabolism weight
Yeah.
loss, and
Yep.
because it's
Yep.
supposed to
Yep.
spike up your metabolism.
Yep.
So carnitine takes a huge play on getting your metabolism going, I would assume.
Absolutely. So we want to a lot of times when if we were to we do things in our at Liquivida also called resting metabolic testing, and resting metabolic rate will allows us to look at whether you're burning primarily fat or burning primarily carbohydrates at rest. You want to be burning, I mean, at least you want to be burning primarily fatty acids. Burning fat when we're not in an activity or exercising, and in order to do that, you have to have carnitine to take those fatty acids and get them inside the mitochondria.
Mm.
So, absolutely, it's a very important part of the metabolic process. If you're carnitine deficient, then you're not going to be able to carry out. It's called beta oxidation. Not many people understand what beta oxidation is, but it's how we take fatty acids into the mitochondria and turn them into energy.
Interesting, interesting. So when I talk to a lot of medical providers, like in medical school, they don't go that deep into talking about amino acids.
Mhm.
But when you really get into like more of the functional medicine side of things, it's a big part of it of getting your body to function. And when we're talking about peptides and stuff, they're amino acid fragments. Just so the listeners have an idea, right? And I don't want an exact number, but how many amino acids are in a person's body?
So we have 20 amino acids. I mean, it's not really a difficult question. There's 20 amino acids, and it's broken down into kind of three categories of amino acids. There are amino acids that are called essential amino acids, which mean that the body does not make enough of that amino acid, so it's needed in the diet in order
Okay.
to really carry out all of the activities. There is a non-essential amino acid, which means that your body makes enough of that amino acid most of the time. And then there's something called semi-conditional amino acid, meaning that it's needed something when you are at increased times of stress or increased times of activity. You're an endurance athlete or a triathlete, or you have some type of sickness or something like that. So at those times where the stress levels are higher, then you need more of those amino acids. So it's called conditionally essential. All right.
Mm.
So it really is when we talk about these amino acids, understanding which one of the ones are absolutely necessary that we get in the diet are really important. So the essential amino acids.
So I always hear a lot of the fitness people, because you're talking about all the different amino acids. They're always like, oh, I got to get my protein supplement that has the BCAAs.
Hmm.
What is
Hmm. Hmm. Right, right,
BCAAs?
right. So branched chain amino acids,
Okay.
and branched chain amino acids are isoleucine, leucine, valine, or the branched chain amino acids, and they are thought to play a really pivotal role in muscle formation. I would say though we need to be careful, and this is some data that I just recently came upon myself, is that over supplementation with BCAAs may cause some insulin resistant issues.
Oh,
Okay, so
okay.
insulin resistance. And so, I am looking more into that data now. I think we do need to be careful because I think they're in the fitness arena. People are supplementing lots with the BCAAs,
Oh
and
yeah.
there's quite a bit of data about people becoming more insulin resistant when you're over supplementing with BCAAs.
Okay. And for
Yeah.
the listeners, what is insulin
So
resistance?
insulin resistance is we can call it prediabetes or metabolic syndrome, and unfortunately, probably 45 to 50% of our society these days have some degree of insulin resistance,
Oh
and it
boy.
simply means that your body is not able to utilize insulin like it should. So insulin should bind to the insulin receptor and then allow the glucose to be uptaken into the muscle cells to be utilized. When you're insulin resistant, it takes more and more of that insulin to bind to the insulin receptor to utilize glucose efficiently. So those are people who end up having higher blood sugars because the blood sugar glucose can't be removed from the blood from the circulation
Okay.
because of the insulin resistance.
Wow.
And there are lots of things that contribute to insulin resistance these days. I mean, again, the foods that we eat, toxin exposure, vitamin D and B vitamin deficiencies, infections, things like that all contribute to insulin resistance. And really, we should all be working towards improving the insulin resistance because it really is an epidemic these days.
Wow. Wow. There is so much to amino acids.
Yeah.
What foods are like rich in amino acids, and what kind of amino
To be
acids?
honest with you, I mean, all foods have amino acids, the breakdown of what type of amino acids are in each food are what's a little bit different. So, and this is a tough subject. I was looking at some literature on trying to determine, when let's take, for example, a plant-based diet or vegan diet versus people who eat more or eat meat. And is there a different type of protein structure or amino acid structure that you get from those? And there is some compelling evidence that there are amino acids that, yes, the vegan diet may have a lot of the amino acids and have a lot of the proteins, but the amino acid concentrations of each specific amino acids are different. So that's a harder question because I'm not sure exactly kind of what amino acids are in specific foods. I do remember there's a very complex graph in one of the references that I was looking at and trying to understand. I was trying to look at what is more in the plants versus in the meats, and it was very difficult to tell. But it certainly is written about certain amino acids are you're likely to be more deficient in when you're eating, for example, carnitine. You don't get a lot of carnitine in in your vegan diet. All
Okay.
right.
Right.
Now, however, having said that, and you and I were talking a little bit earlier, there's another way to get carnitine, and this is something that was fairly new to me as well. The amino acid lysine can be methylated, meaning you can add a methyl group to lysine, and it gets converted into carnitine. So that was totally news to me. So this whole process of what we hear about a lot these days, this methylation, the importance of B vitamins.
Right.
So that same process that a lot of people are talking about is also very important in converting an amino acid lysine into another important amino acid carnitine that's then responsible for taking these fatty acids, like we talked about, into this mitochondria and turn it into energy.
Energy. Everybody needs energy.
Yeah.
Yep. Your whole body needs energy. That's what it's made out of. So talking about the foods, I remember when the whole big like quinoa thing just started going crazy. It's the healthy carb. It's the healthy thing. And I started reading about it. So why is this thing so healthy? I like it. My mother would like create quinoa salads with little raisins in it and stuff. And so I started looking into it, and I started reading that like, okay, well this quinoa, it's actually made out of a bunch of these different amino acids that convert or break down to like a protein or something. So it's interesting how like a lot of foods do have these different amino acids.
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, you could get amino acids by mouth by taking some supplementation. You could take it, get it in by the food sources that you're eating. But some people have, absorption issues, gut issues. And one of the things is getting your amino acids either intramuscular, subcutaneous, or intravenously. And one of the things that we have in our liquid lift and also performance hydration IV drips is the amino acid blend. So I want to talk a little bit about the breakdown of that, the benefits of some of these different amino acids that are in there, so people can kind of understand, why do we put it in the performance hydration? Why is it in the liquid lift? Like, how is this helping with people with their endurance, with the recovery process, all of that stuff?
So yeah, this blend that we came up with is a combination of glutamine, arginine, lysine, which we spoke about, and proline. Let me just we'll start with glutamine. Glutamine is extremely important when it comes to, and it's most abundant in muscle, but glutamine is very important in muscle formation. And we know that when it comes to overall health and longevity, the longer that we can maintain muscle mass, the better, the longer we live. And from a vitality standpoint, all of the studies have shown if we can maintain muscle mass, the longevity improves. As we start to lose muscle mass, a condition called sarcopenia, and that's when we start to kind of, lots of things from a chronic illness perspective start to happen, and we start to go downhill as we start to become more sarcopenic or lose muscle mass. So glutamine is really important. Glutamine is really important as well in the gut. When it comes to normal gut function, GI tract function, glutamine is really important from that perspective. Arginine, probably as a cardiologist, one of my favorite amino acids because it has a primary role of production of nitric oxide. So arginine is converted to nitric oxide, which we know is a very important molecule when it comes to vascular health, right? When it comes to dilating the vessels, the arteries, when it comes to preventing the arteries from being should I say, very sticky, and those things called platelets come in and forming blood clots in your arteries. So nitric oxide, and not only that, these days we're just finding out, I mean, the many different roles of nitric oxide. And so having enough arginine that can convert to nitric oxide is really important. Lysine, we spoke about. I think probably one of the most pivotal roles of lysine, like we just talked about, was conversion to carnitine, which then improves overall fatty acid metabolism, being converted into energy, ATP. Also, lysine is very important in skin health.
Okay.
So the combination of lysine, proline, hydroxyproline, and vitamin C, those are the four agents that are really important in collagen formation in our skin. So it keeps us looking younger, and the wrinkles are less as we
And
age.
nobody wants wrinkles. Nobody wants wrinkles,
So,
right?
so that lysine actually plays a role there too. I think the other thing that we've known about lysine, and really good data on lysine and other viruses like the herpes virus, lysine can actually really be useful in treating herpes virus infections, things like shingles and other herpes viruses, herpes type 1 or 2
Wow.
as well. And then lastly, proline, I kind of mentioned, I think the predominant role of proline as well is in the skin and overall skin health.
Okay. Wow. What a mix. What a mix. So someone who's like an athlete doing like triathlons
Hmm.
or maybe a professional athlete,
Hmm.
when they're thinking about taking amino acids, what's going to be the biggest benefit for an individual who's trying to like recover and
Yeah,
put on
yeah.
lean mass or endurance, whatever it is.
So I think out of all of those, where I mentioned about the arginine, and the arginine being converted to nitric oxide, when we talk about overall performance and recovery time, and that's where the nitric oxide is just a very important molecule there. So certainly the arginine there, and then the glutamine with respect to muscle formation and maintaining muscle mass. Those would be the two when it comes to the athletes and the performance. I think that what's important and what we do here at Liquivida too is not just about, I mean, evaluating these things and measuring where we are with respect to each individual is very important, meaning that we really do an assessment of the amino acids. We do assessment of all the other micronutrients like the B vitamins and antioxidants. And so we can be a little more dialed in to what each person needs if they have specific deficiencies. So I think that's important for all of the listeners to
Right,
kind of
right.
know about as well.
And that's more of that personalized approach. Now, for someone who lives like an active lifestyle like that, like what kind of frequency should they be feeding their bodies these amino acids?
Yeah, I think that depends on you. You said something a little bit earlier, and I want to kind of piggyback off of that. It really depends on, first of all, when we're taking in the essential amino acids in our food, it depends on the quality of the food that we're eating, right? So a grass-fed and finished fillet versus a non-grass-fed and finished fillet, there's a whole different macro, I mean, from a content, from the amino acid content, it's going to be a whole different ball game of what we're getting. So the quality of the food is really important. The second thing that's really important is that person's digestive system, right? I mean, if they have digestive enzyme issues, that protein could be the best protein in the world, but if they're
Right.
lacking digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid and things like that, then they're not going to digest that protein into those amino acids that gets absorbed very well. And then the third thing is, as that food comes down through that digestive tract, if the digestive system, the small intestine, has issues with dysbiosis or overgrowth of specific bacteria or other yeast, the absorption again is going to be impacted there. So there's
Right.
some other things to think about. Knowing each individual's personal makeup will help you understand. I mean, if I know I have all those issues that I just talked about, there's no way I'm going to eat my way to enough of those amino acids. So getting them more frequently is going to be probably something that I recommend. So just understanding where each person is and their underlying potential medical issues helps
Right.
to kind of really drive, whether it's once a month, once a week, it really depends on those other issues.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I read a few articles before about L-arginine also benefiting like fertility, and there was a protocol actually by Dr. Guy De Silva
Hmm.
where he was doing like 8 grams of
Wow.
L-arginine
Hmm.
intravenously. So I'm curious. I'm actually gonna do a little research myself to see if there's actual like strong data on it. I don't
Yeah.
know if you know about any of
I
that.
don't know about that, but I would bet you that's mediated through what we just talked about. I bet you it's mediated through
Yeah,
nitric oxide,
interesting.
because nitric oxide has so many beneficial effects. That's a molecule that we can look at from the immune system to the detox system. I mean, it's involved everywhere. We think about it primarily with the cardiovascular system and vascular health, but it has so many other roles.
Right,
So I
right.
would bet dollars to donuts when we find there, that's a nitric oxide mediated process to improve fertility.
That's interesting. Interesting. So, magic question: what's your favorite amino acid, personally?
I will say, okay, so here's one thing I didn't say. It's probably arginine, but that combination of glutamine, arginine, and carnitine, that combination, otherwise known as GAC, would be one of my favorites. Or the combination of glutamine, arginine, ornithine, and lysine would be, and the reason is, and I've used these combinations myself
Is it the
personally.
GAC live that people talk
Yeah,
about? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and really and the reason is they are great at naturally boosting growth hormone. And I didn't
Oh,
say that
nice.
before. So as we think about anti-aging strategies and maintaining body composition that where you want it to be, the amino acids, particularly, I mean, the injectable, or we can get them in the IVs, but the injectable amino acids are fantastic ways of really increasing growth hormone naturally. These using these amino acids and really from an anti-aging longevity standpoint, really beneficial.
So earlier you said that there's about 20 amino acids, different amino
There are
acids,
20 amino acids.
and then you look at the peptides and their amino acid fragments, right? Where you look at like growth hormone and it's what
Yeah.
100 and not 81 or 91 amino
I
acid
don't know
fragments.
how many how much GH is, how many amino acids.
I think it's like 191 or 81,
Yeah.
one of those two. But regardless, like what's the difference between amino acid fragment versus an actual amino acids?
So I think what you were asking is the difference between peptides and then these so a group of amino acids, and I think the number is basically it moves up. So up to 50, between 40 and 50 amino acids is considered a peptide.
Okay.
After we go over that, they're considered proteins, right?
Proteins. Wow.
And all of all of the enzymes in our body, for example, I don't know, insulin, and it is an enzyme, but it's actually made up of amino acids. So, I mean, all of these proteins, we got many, many enzymes that are proteins in our body that are amino acid structures. If you remember, think about, I don't know how many of you guys remember your high school biology class. Amino
That
acids.
was your favorite class? Made you want to become a doc?
If you had to think, we remember we all talked about DNA and we're all made from DNA. And I remember these diagrams where DNA is then converted to RNA, right? Messenger RNA. I know this is getting too very scientific, but I remember these pictures where the DNA was split in half, okay, and then the messenger RNA comes along, but then that messenger RNA goes to these other places in your cells, the ribosomes, and they're read, and they're turned into amino acids. If you guys remember, these three, what we call, I don't want to get do too much science here, but these three codons that code for amino acids. So these three, as the DNA is translated, it's these three codons that turn into amino acids, and they code for these 20 amino acids.
That's awesome, man. See, this is why I love Dr. Davis, man. It's like you're bringing it to us, man. The science is there. It's like I don't even know how you remember this stuff, but it's fantastic. Like I'm always learning. That's why I love having you on the podcast. So awesome. So L-arginine is his favorite amino acid. If I were to ask myself that question, the one that I think is pretty cool is HMB. It's always been like hard to get. It's good for like lean mass and whatnot. Which you know a little bit about HMB.
Yep. But that's not a true amino acid, though, is it? I mean, that's HMB is actually a metabolite. It actually is a metabolite. I'm not sure which amino acid it breaks down to. So it's not one of the 20 main amino acids.
Right.
That's hydroxymethylbutyrate.
I just know they sell it in the amino acid aisle at the vitamin store.
That's not one of the 20 amino acids, though. No.
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, from a muscle mass, and I actually have tried that as well, and it was pretty impressive.
Yeah. So cool. So all right. So we got the the Liquid Lift, the performance hydration with all the different amino acids. Is there anything else that you feel that people need to know about amino acids, the importance of the amino acids, especially when they're treating the patients? Any potential negative side effects of taking amino acids?
I mean, there are certain amino acids that if the levels get too high, I think one of the things that comes up sometimes. I mean, there are a few of them, glutamine and glutamic acid, for example. If people are taking too much glutamine, glutamine and glutamic acid can get converted to each other. And one of the things we have to and then it can also get converted to glutamate. And glutamate is a very it's a excitatory neurotransmitter. And so what I've found, and this is actually true in clinical practice, there are people who have a lot of anxiety issues, and it turns out that their glutamate levels are really, really high.
Oh, wow.
And some of that may be related to the breakdown of glutamate to GABA. GABA is our kind of calm me down, like chill out, and inhibitory neurotransmitter, glutamate being a stimulatory neurotransmitter. And there is an enzyme that's responsible for breaking glutamate down to GABA, which is called glutamic acid decarboxylase. And if you have a genetic variant in that breakdown gene, what happens is glutamic or glutamate levels build up, and glutamine also can make glutamate levels build up. So you can really, I mean, and this has happened in practice, particularly a guy who was this athlete. He was taking tons and tons of glutamine. He was having all these issues with anxiety and bipolar. And I had him take a picture. I'll never forget this, take a picture of all of his supplements. And he had all these supplements, and like 10 supplements had like glutamine, 5 grams of glutamine, 10 grams of
Wow.
glutamine. And I was like, wow, this is probably a glutamate issue, right? And
Mr.
so, and
Glutamine.
some of the,
Mr. Glutamine. He's
yeah.
walking around with so much glutamine.
And
God.
when you check this, like when you checked his glutamate levels, off the
Wow.
charts, right? And so just telling him to pull away some of this glutamine so that it wasn't being converted to glutamate. And then the other thing you can do with that, particularly if that kind of situation happens, is you can upregulate that glutamic acid decarboxylase gene or that enzyme by just giving people some magnesium and vitamin B6. So we can push that
Okay.
enzyme to work a little better to convert glutamate to GABA.
Nice. That's pretty cool. What you're talking about, Dr. Davis, I know that you don't like to just supplement to supplement,
No.
right? We like to supplement based off of what the personal need is for that individual.
Yeah.
So for the people that are listening, for the doctors that are listening and trying to figure out more about the amino acids and for their patients, what are some of the tests that you do to look at
Yeah.
potential deficiencies, or maybe where the patient has too much of a certain level that could be affecting them
Yeah,
negatively?
absolutely. There's a couple different companies that have good micronutrient tests. Vibrant Labs has a good micronutrient test, I've gone from Vibrant to using Genova. The Genova NutriVal test is kind of my favorite test right now. It allows us to look at vitamins, minerals, amino acids, antioxidants. So we're at fatty acids, and so for me, that's my. We talk all the time about looking under the hood. That's my go-to now because I mean I really get a good grasp of what's going on from a micronutrient standpoint from that test, from a gut health, looking at dysbiosis markers, from a neurotransmitter standpoint, from a mitochondrial function standpoint, from a toxin standpoint. That one test allows me to look at all of those issues, and I'm able to kind of come up with a strategy to kind of address those things. So it's like really putting a lot of pieces together with one test.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. So that's it right here, man, for the amino acids. Dr. Davis, I appreciate you sharing all of your knowledgeable information to all the listeners. Where can people find you?
They can find me on the Liquivida website, and they can find me with my Liquivida practice and my practice in Sarasota, Florida, as well, Reveal Vitality. So you guys can find me. We're going to be doing some really exciting things. I'm really excited about what we're doing from a health and wellness perspective. We're truly trying to bring true health to all of our clients from a different approach. Right? It's super important that as a traditional physician, I think we've missed the mark with how we evaluate our clients or patients. Now that look under the hood is how we truly prevent disease as opposed to being reactive with respect to what we've typically done.
And I know we got a lot of great things in the works, and a lot of the people are going to start hearing more about environmental toxins, and we're going to take it to a certain level that no one has really taken it before, where people are really going to understand what's getting them sick. So
Yeah.
people need to stay tuned. Make sure to follow Dr. Davis. Listen, tune in. There's a lot of stuff. We speak on stage, both him and I. We're going to be speaking at a few conferences coming up. So, Dr. Davis, I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Absolutely.
And thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, leave all your messages, do all the fun stuff, share it. And thank you for tuning in to a Healthy Point of View podcast.